Okay, welcome in to the Teal Shirt Report podcast. We're going to really highlight this episode with, stuff about the Jaguars, like we, do most podcasts. I know the last podcast we had was a little bit shorter than usual, but we're going to get into this last win over the Colts. I mean, it was a huge win for our Jacksonville Jaguars, and no doubt about that. Huge win. Welcome to the Teal Shirt Report Podcast. Episode show number 77. What do I think of with 77? I think of Lyle Alzado with what they used to call the Orange Crush defense with Denver. Later went on and became a Raider. And the late Alzado, there was some misuse of, I guess you would say, steroids at his time. And sadly, he passed away. And I'm assuming the steroids, maybe concussions, all contributed to his passing. Because there's a lot of people his age that are still living now. Lyle Alzado, number 77. Just a football player that, he was a player I'm assuming when the other players played against him, they certainly had to account for him. He was a kind of a dastardly guy. And, Dick Butkus, number 51, passed away. And I think he was even more tough, rough, and rumble than Alzado, but you'd have to put Alzado right up there with him. Lyle Alzado, number 77. We'll remember him today with episode show number 77 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast. He's the 77 that comes to mind when I think of the number 77. We appreciate you guys buckling in with us. Jacksonville Jaguars 36, the Indianapolis Colts 19. A final on Sunday, December the 7th of 2025. The Jaguars are now 9-4 on the season. And if you're following along with us on YouTube, you'll see the ticker scrolling across the screen talking about our sponsors, Saucer Realty and Capital, for your real estate needs in North Florida, whether it's home, residential, business, or commercial real estate. Saucer Realty and Capital. If you're thinking about buying or selling your home or buying a second home or whatever your thoughts and plans are in real estate, I highly advise you to contact Larry Saucer with Saucer Realty and Capital. And you can start by going to the website. First place to go is bigjreport.com, and then scroll the homepage, and right near our local North Florida weather report, somewhere in the middle or toward the end of the weather, you'll see a link for Saucer Realty and Capital. I also want to thank other sponsors, including the Mad Max Mix.weebly.com. Max has a great request show playing primarily music, pop classics, classic rock. And a lot of these groups, Max really brings back to life the Atlanta Rhythm section. All the original members have passed away. You can say the same thing about groups, like Molly Hatchet. Groups that, Molly Hatchet is still actually touring, but they have no original members. But they have a lot of guys that have been in that group for a long, long time, but none of them were the original Molly Hatchet group. Similar story with Leonard Skinner, obviously, but Max brings a lot of these groups and the original recordings back to life on Wednesday nights. Check out the Mad Max Mix. He also plays Steely Dan for me. Max plays the Atlanta Rhythm section. And Max, I'll contact you on your show Wednesday night. And we come on Max's show and get interviewed probably, I'm going to say at least once or twice a month. Also, the very next night, JC's on Thursday nights with JC live from the pub at LakeUfallahits.com. Great, absolutely great internet radio where it's all good with LakeUfallahits.com. Getting underway at 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time for LakeUfallahits.com. And, of course, LakeUfallahits.com is there all the time. Music pretty much 24/7. JC's show is on Thursday nights. JC live from the pub on Thursday night, 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time for the show. And again, Mad Max, we mentioned him on Wednesday nights. Max takes your request to it. Max does it a little differently than JC because Max basically will give you a phone number, his request number to call him or primarily text him on his show on Wednesday night, 6 to 8 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And Max even has kind of an encore after the show where he's playing some longer tracks after the show officially ends. So great shows at madmaxmix.wiggly.com. On Wednesday nights, JC live from the pub on LakeUfallahits.com on Thursday nights. And JC, again, a special thank you to you for playing Gordon Lightfoot and Sundown for me. Probably one of I'll have to go out on a limb and say that song means a lot to me, for whatever the reasons. A good song, too. And it's probably in my top, JC, it's probably in my top 100 songs of all time. I mean, maybe toward the back of it, but it's in there. So I appreciate the request that Lake Eufaula Hits plays for me. Also the madmaxmix.weebly.com. Mad Max Mix on Wednesday nights. JC live from the pub on Thursday nights. And if you want to listen to these shows, best way to do it, go to bigjreport.com. Scroll our Neighbors 2 section, and you'll actually find links for those shows where you can click into Mad Max's show on Wednesday nights or JC's show on Thursday nights. We've got an article about Mad Max in our Outside the Box section that's been up there for a while. Check it out if you've never read the article, which we do touch up and add some stuff to from time to time as well. Jacksonville Jaguars with a 36-19 win over the Indianapolis Colts. People say Trevor Lawrence. How did he play? Did he play great? I'm going to say no. Did he play good? I'm going to say yes. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence, and the reason why I'm saying all this, in the football game, Trevor Lawrence was 17 out of 30, which is a little bit better than 50%, not the greatest percentage. But he ran the football some. He also threw 2 touchdown passes. This is the critical stat, 2 touchdown passes and no interceptions. Brian Thomas Jr., 3 catches, 87 yards in the game. I'm talking to John Gaylor, and he mentions what's the guy's name? Van Lanham, who was filling in for Walker Little at left tackle. And he's basically a backup. I think he's played guard, tackle all over the offensive line, but he looked pretty good at left tackle in the Jaguars' victory over the Colts. So, heck, leave him out there maybe. The competition's a good thing. I mean, if Walker Little's not playing as good as Van Lanham does for the Jaguars, then, leave Van Lanham out there, right? I think I'm pronouncing his name right, Van Lanham. I know somebody will correct me if I'm not. A guy that needs to get a guy that really needs to be re-signed is a guy named running back or Travis Etienne. But, they played at Clemson together, Trevor and Travis Etienne. He's gotten the tough yards this year. 20 carries, 74 yards, and the key stat, the critical stat, 2 touchdown runs in this game. Etienne is quietly, and maybe in some respects more than quietly, having a good year. Turnovers in this game were crucial. The Colts turned the ball over 3 times. Jaguars got a couple of interceptions. Devin Lloyd, number 0, got his 5th interception of the season. And, Devin, he missed a couple of games in the middle of the season with an injury. So he's got 5 interceptions. That's pretty darn good. Greg Newsome, the guy the Jaguars got in the trade when they traded Tyson Campbell, here a few weeks back. I was not a real fan of the trade, but I think it was a trade that I think the GM felt like he had to make because it was, I think, more of a salary cap move. Because when I say more of a salary cap move, Balky had signed Tyson Campbell to a new contract. And that's great for Tyson Campbell and even good at the time for the Jaguars. But they're looking ahead at what they got to do. They got a big contract with Trevor Lawrence. You got guys like ETN, who I'm sure they would love to sign in the offseason. But ETN may eventually be on another team if the Jags do not re-sign him. The wide receivers, everything was kind of evenly dispersed. Brian Thomas, 3 catches, 87 yards. Tim Patrick, number 17, 5 catches for 78 yards in this football game. He was huge. And he caught a touchdown pass. The guy that I actually saw him drop a pass in this game, maybe it's the first drop I've seen him make, Jacoby Myers, but he also made up for it with a touchdown catch later in the game. So the wide receiver play is pretty darn good. Tim Patrick, number 17, 5 catches for 78 yards and 1 touchdown. Jacoby Myers caught a touchdown pass. And Brian Thomas Jr., not a lot of catches, but 3 catches made him count. 3 catches for 87 yards. Josh Hines-Allen, give him credit. He got a sack. He got a solid 1 sack in this game, and that was huge. I also have to say this. Trayvon Walker played one of his better games. Maybe he's getting healthier now. Trayvon Walker in the game looked like he had 6 total tackles, 2 solo tackles. I saw, and he had he had 1 tackle for, what do they call it? A TFL, tackle for loss, right? Those are huge. That particular play that Trayvon Walker made, number 44, we're going to talk good about Trayvon Walker in this particular instance. He made one of the best tackles I've ever seen him make. He was coming up the middle. It's probably more of, in my mind, it's more telling about why he probably should be playing more inside. This tackle was made inside, and it was for, a loss, and it was a strong tackle. It was what I like to see. It was a tackle of physicality, and it was probably the best tackle I've ever seen Trayvon Walker make, and he made it in the Colts game. And that's huge. Both of these teams went into this game 8-4. Daniel Jones did get hurt in the game. That hurt the Colts. And now all of a sudden, I even got it collaborated from our executive producer, JC. I said, what's all this about Phillip Rivers, 44 years old, wanting to play again in the NFL? And I believe the last time he played, it was with the Colts. Was it 3 years ago, 2 years ago? But he hasn't played football in a while. A couple of good things for Phillip Rivers is he hasn't played in a while, so he must be 100% healthy. He's not lost it in his mind, and I'm assuming he can still throw the football. Now, maybe he can't throw it as deep as he did at one time. Peyton Manning, toward the end of his career, lost something on what they call the fastball and throwing the deep patterns, even though Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl with Denver late in his career. So Phillip Rivers has never won a Super Bowl. He's signing. I think it's official. He signed with the Indianapolis Colts. I saw it yesterday on social media. Maybe I should pop it up and see what the latest is. Sometimes these guys will change their mind, but I don't think he will. I think he's back to play. And it's not like Phillip Rivers has to play the whole season. He's coming in. The Colts are 8-5. They are a contender for the wild card, but man, think about this. I mean, the Colts had a 2 or 3 game lead here just a month ago. And now the Jaguars have a 1-game lead in first place. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 9-4. Colts are 8-5. And we're going to pull up some AFC standings in a few minutes. But yes, how the Colts signed Phillip Rivers out of NFL retirement. Phillip Rivers has not taken a snap since the 2020 COVID season. So he's been out longer than I even thought. Played his college football at North Carolina State. Played the majority of his career for the then San Diego Chargers, who later became the Los Angeles Chargers. And he is re-signed. I understand he's 44 years of age. You look at a guy like Joe Flacco, who's proven in the last couple of years he can still play. And he's just probably a smidge He's probably, 3 or 4 years younger than Phillip Rivers. So Phillip Rivers is coming back. We'll see how he does. Does he come back and play immediately in the first game? I would, knowing Phillip Rivers, I'm thinking probably does if he knows the playbook and checks out with a physical, and everything of that nature. So that's a lot of fun. I wish him well. I'm just happy the Jaguars have a 1-game lead over the Colts right now. In the Colts-Jaguars game, Jonathan Taylor lost a fumble, but he had 21 carries, a touchdown, 74 yards. ETN and Jonathan Taylor had very similar stats. Jonathan Taylor carried the ball 21 times, got 1 touchdown, 74 yards. ETN carried the ball 20 times, got 74 yards, but got 2 touchdowns and did not lose a fumble like Jonathan Taylor did. Jags got a couple of Apple turnovers on interceptions. Again, the interceptions were by cornerback Greg Newsome of the Jaguars, and also the Jaguars linebacker Devin Lloyd, who's making a living on interceptions this year. And you got to give him credit. 5 total interceptions for Devin Lloyd. And yes, he's in a contract year. His 5th-year option was not exercised by the Jaguars, so he's in the 4th year. This will be the final year of his contract. In my opinion, what I've said all along, I think Devin Lloyd's going to test the free agent market. But unless the Jaguars really come up with some kind of offer to try to keep him in Jacksonville. So that's kind of where we are there. But we're just talking about 2025 now, because the Jaguars, as you know, are lining themselves up to be in the playoffs. They're 9-4. I saw somebody posted something on social media. How many games will the Jaguars win? And this was before the Colts game. I said they're going to win at least 2 more and get this thing up to 10 wins. Now I'm thinking they beat the Colts at home. I'm thinking the Jaguars, they got 4 games left. I'm thinking they're going to win at least 2 and get this thing up to 11 wins. And if they win 11, they may win the division. They've got a 1-game lead right now. The more you win, the better your shot at winning the division. And obviously, winning the division is much better than getting the wild card, right? So I think we've covered most on here. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence, 17 out of 30 in the game. Did he play great? No, but he played good. He didn't make the crucial mistakes. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 17 out of 30 in the game. Yardage in the game, the Jaguars 350 yards, the Colts 285 yards. But down the stretch, the Colts now feel like they're still in this thing. They're 1 game back. They got another game with the Jacksonville Jaguars in Indy, and that game's just around the corner. I think it's in a couple of weeks. So the Jaguars will play Indianapolis at Indy, and it looks like now they've really signed and brought him back into the league. He hasn't played now, and we just looked it up. He hasn't played in almost 5 years. Talking about Phillip Rivers. So that's an amazing thing. So looking over what I wanted to talk to you about, I think we touched on almost everything as far as my notes go. Tim Patrick, a touchdown, 5 catches, 78 yards. Brian Thomas Jr., 3 catches, 87 yards. Tim Patrick got a touchdown from Trevor Lawrence. And let's see, the other touchdown was Jacoby Myers in the game. And I finally saw Jacoby Myers drop a pass. And if a guy drops 1 or 2 passes a season, you can understand that. But this guy, man, he catches the football. So when he drops a pass, it is magnified because he doesn't do it very often. So the Jacksonville Jaguars are 9-4 on the season. I did want to pull up some of the latest AFC standings. Let's see here. George Myra passed away. Guy that played college ball at Miami, kind of back before my time, but I remember him as a veteran. He played some NFL football, played for the WFL Jacksonville Express. That was the year after the Jacksonville Sharks in the World Football League. So George Myra played in 1975 when I was a young kid, played for the WFL World Football League Jacksonville Express. He was their quarterback, played the majority. He was a starter for the Express. Rest in peace, George Myra. I understand he's passed away. The former University of Miami All-American quarterback passed away. It was just like yesterday on December the 9th. And he was a great World Football League player. And that JC, my executive producer, that was, we all know about the USFL. The World Football League was like 8-9 years before the USFL. So I saw that, and that kind of touched me a little bit because I remember George Myra playing for the Jacksonville Express when I was a young kid. Rest in peace, George Myra, former World Football League quarterback. He also played in the NFL. And so that's some good stuff. I'm watching the new coach at Florida, and he coaches Tulane. And they're in the playoff. They're going to play Ole Miss. And he says he's wired that way to win now. Um, he said he says in his plan, he's got a plan to win later, but he's got a plan to win now too. John Summerall, when he was asked when he was asked the question about how long he expects for Florida to start winning, for him to start winning in Florida, he says he's not very patient. He's like the Florida fan base. So maybe Florida's got the right guy. And Lane Kiffin's quite a character, but he's going to LSU. I watched a video on YouTube. Maybe I need to post it up at our on our channel. But Lane Kiffin was fired back, I think it was 2008, like 17 years ago. He was fired by Al Davis when he coached that 1 year, or maybe it was a little more than a year, with the Raiders. And it's just hilarious. The late Al Davis talks about, and he had an overhead projector in the video, and talks about the situation with Lane Kiffin where he opted to fire Lane Kiffin. I believe he said for cause. So check out that video. I may post it up here on the when I get a chance, maybe not today, but in the next day or two, I'll post it up on this particular podcast episode, show number 77 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast. I did want to hit at least the AFC standings. I want to hit the AFC standings. So there's a post on Facebook. Yeah, we're still doing it in 2025, talking about the Teal Shirt Report podcast. It was a memory like 4 years ago, and we're still doing it in 2025. The Teal Shirt Report podcast, which is still on audio. Still on audio. We've got over 12,000 all-time listens on audio. And now we've been on YouTube for about a year. The total podcast has been on audio for 6 years, 1 year on YouTube. And I appreciate you guys listening. I really, really do. Appreciate you guys tuning in, checking us out. This is episode show number 77. I think in the old days of the audio, and we're still doing audio, by the way, we normally had done like 82 episodes in a season. I think we're going to surpass that this year. Jimmy Smith is the number 82. We try to get up to 82 to talk about Jimmy Smith. But we're going to take a look. Let's see. We're going to take a look at the standings here, because I know Barry had posted the AFC standings. Instead of me having to pull up another area with the standings, Barry had posted this from our Big J Report Facebook group. Barry Johnson, who does just a great job as a moderator. Army-Navy game is coming up this week. And then the week after the Army-Navy game, then you got the college football playoffs. Army is 6-5, not ranked. Navy is 9-2, ranked 22nd in the Associated Press. That Army-Navy game is going to be this Saturday at 3 o'clock on December the 13th. Okay. Man, the Florida Gators basketball team lost to UConn. Ouch. UConn 77, Florida 73. Gators ranked 18th. They were the national champions last year. UConn is ranked 5th. So Florida's played some really tough games. Florida's lost a couple of games already this season. Is this correct here? Actually, the number 18th ranked Gators are now 5-4, off to a bit of a slow start for a national championship team. I see them, Coach Golden, I see them getting the things corrected, and I think Florida playing tough competition like UConn, losing to UConn 77-73 in college basketball and make them a tougher team and better team down the road. But for me, college basketball, early December is almost too early for college basketball. I mean, I know they start in November. Weather report for North Florida, clear to partly cloudy, much cooler out there. It did not get as cold this morning as the forecasters had thought, maybe as low as 38 in the morning. We actually got down to, what was it? I think the lowest temperature I saw was 44 this morning. Some clouds and 44 very cool degrees in Jacksonville, Florida at 6:20 a.m. this morning on Wednesday morning, December the 10th of 2025. Clouds then clearing later. High today 65 in North Florida. Low late tonight around 43. Winds will actually start picking back up out of the west at about 5 to 16 miles per hour. So a little bit of weather information for you here on the Teal Shirt Report podcast. I wanted to pull up the AFC standings. That was a whole point of going to the Big J Report Facebook group because I know Barry Johnson had posted the AFC standings, not the NFC, but just the AFC. We'll take a look at it. Patriots 11-2 leading the AFC East. Buffalo's 9-4, same record as the Jaguars. Dolphins are 6-7. Jets are 3-10. So basically, out of that group, the Patriots and the Bills should both make the playoffs. It looks like the Patriots may win the division. You got a 2-game lead over Buffalo. AFC North is a battle. The Steelers, who beat the Ravens, that was a big win for Pittsburgh. But they're 7-6, not the greatest record, but they're still leading the AFC North by 1 game. So it kind of appears like the AFC North, the division winner gets in, but not so much the rest of the division as far as wild cards go. Pittsburgh 7-6, Baltimore 6-7. They lost their quarterback for a few weeks, but now he's back playing. Pittsburgh is 7-6. Baltimore Ravens 6-7. Cincinnati Bengals 4-9. The Brownies are way back at 3-10, and they have Tyson Campbell on their team. The Jags picked up Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome actually got an interception for the Jags in the Colts game. AFC West. This is a guy that's coaching the Broncos that has made this team ever so gradually better over the last 4 years. And now they're 11-2. Great coach Sean Payton. I talked about him ad nauseum before he ever took the Denver job. I was thinking, man, what if the Jaguars could have got a hold of him? Sean Payton's 11-2 in Denver. The Chargers are 9-4. They beat the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Kansas City is going to struggle. They may not make the playoffs. They're 6-7. The Raiders 2-11, and then you go to the AFC South. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 9-4. Houston and Indianapolis are both 8-5. You got a 3-team race in the AFC South, and it's probably the best race of all 4 divisions in the AFC. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 9-5. The Houston Texans are 8-5. Colts are 8-5. Tennessee Titans are 2-11 to round out the AFC South standings, where your division leaders right now are the Jaguars, Steelers, Patriots, and Denver. Chargers and Buffalo seem to have the inside track on the wild cards. The Buffalo's 9-4. Chargers are 9-4, and I think there's actually a third wild card that will come out of the division. And that could be either Houston, they're 8-5. The Texans are 8-5. The Colts are 8-5. And now Phillip Rivers going back to the Colts. And he has not played in over 4 years, almost 5 years. Phillip Rivers has been re-signed by the Colts. So amazing stuff. A lot of good stuff on our Facebook group. It's good the Jaguars are leading the division. However, man, and by the way, for concerts, go to bigjreport.com, scroll our Neighbors 2 section for the concerts in the area. A lot of good shows coming up in 2026. Carla Bonoff, Foreigner with Night Ranger. And Foreigner, Lou Graham is going to be back with Foreigner in 2026. I know he's done, already some rehearsals with Foreigner. He may have done some shows with him already, but he will be doing the show in 2026. Foreigner with Lou Graham returning. Night Rangers on that show. Check out the Neighbors 2 section for the dates and the times, locations, places, etc. Check out our concert listings in the Neighbors 2 section at bigjreport.com. And again, we appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. Last time I checked the East Coast Hockey League standings, the Icemen had lost to the Atlanta Gladiators. I believe it was on Sunday. And then if we pull up the East Coast Hockey League standings, last I checked, the Icemen had fallen a game below 500. And the Icemen are still there, 21 games in. The Jacksonville Icemen are 10-11 on the season. College football playoffs, they're coming. Got the Army-Navy game this Saturday, and then the week after that, a few days after that, you got the college football playoffs. And let's pull up the playoffs. College football playoffs, the 12 teams in the field. Ole Miss will play Tulane. The new Florida coach still coaching Tulane in the postseason. Lane Kiffin is not with Ole Miss. He's at LSU. But some of the assistants are running the thing, including, the new head coach at Ole Miss. What is that guy's name? Golden, right? Not Todd Golden, but Ole Miss's new head coach. And they made him the permanent head coach. He's not just the interim head coach. But Ole Miss head football coach, he's going to be running them in the playoffs. He was a defensive coordinator for Lane Kiffin. He's been at Alabama, too. That's Pete Golding. Pete Golding, the new Ole Miss football coach, replacing Lane Kiffin, just not on an interim basis. They've named him as the permanent head coach at Ole Miss. So the playoffs are set. Ole Miss versus Tulane. Alabama getting a rematch against Oklahoma just about a month ago. Oklahoma beat Alabama 23-21. James Madison will play at Oregon. There's no Notre Dame in this thing. Notre Dame was left out. And when they felt like they were the 13th team out of 12 playoff teams, they're not accepting a bowl bid either. They're not going to play in a bowl game, Notre Dame. They're showing their defiance of not being invited into the playoff. So the 12 teams, Ole Miss will play Tulane, Alabama versus Oklahoma, James Madison at Oregon, Miami of Florida will battle Texas A&M. And then you got the 4 teams with a bye. Indiana, who won the Big Ten for the first time in decades. Georgia won the SEC. Texas Tech won the Big 12. They're getting a bye. And the Big Ten runner-up, Ohio State, finished 12-1. They're getting a bye, too. Those are the 12 teams in the playoffs. Check out the concerts at bigjreport.com in the Neighbors 2 section. Again, JC, thank you so much for playing Gordon Lightfoot's Sundown for me. And I'll be talking to Max tonight on Wednesday night. I don't know if we're doing an interview tonight, Max, but I know you and I have you've been interviewing me like once or twice a month. And thank you for all the requests you've been playing for me as well. That's going to do it for the Teal Shirt Report podcast. We have been eloquently produced by our executive producer, JC, also by Alex Nunnery. Alex Nunnery hit me up in the Big J Report Facebook chat. Alex said, Scott, did you know that Liam Cohen, the coach of the Jaguars, and the new coach, John Summerall of the Florida Gators, they are really good friends. And I told Alex, I said, boy, I mentioned that in the podcast about a week ago. So we've been kind of even ahead of the curve. I did have a chance to review some of the old Tulane press conferences from, a few weeks ago during this really good season Tulane has gone on, where they've made the playoff. And I did find out that, we talked about that on the podcast about a week ago about how Liam Cohen, the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach in his first year, and now the new head coach at Florida, John Summerall, they are pretty good friends. They both were assistant coaches at Kentucky a few years ago, and that may have been where they perhaps began their friendship. These coaches, they're like a fraternity almost. Coaches, most of them get along with each other. Some do, some don't, probably, just like, with people in life. That's going to do it for the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Thank you so much, JC. We've been eloquently produced by JC, also by Alex Nunnery and John Gaylor. Thank you so much. John Gaylor, contributor and correspondent of our Teal Shirt Report podcast, and also BigJReport.com. This has been the Teal Shirt Report podcast from BigJReport.com. Please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Check out, our audio podcast as well. Check us out. This has been episode show number 77. I'm your host, Scott, for the Teal Shirt Report podcast. And hey, we appreciate you guys checking it all out with us right here on the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Again, episode show number 77. Thank you guys for hanging in with us on this. This is Wednesday morning, December the 10th of 2025, episode show number 77. Hey, you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for listening and watching the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Thank you. You guys have a great day.